Welcome to Books with Noah, a podcast where I talk with my friends about their favorite books. I'd like to welcome Chris to Books with Noah. Chris is a fellow engineer and has a YouTube channel called Smart Van, where he talks about his smart van. He does software and hardware connected projects to make it the ultimate internet and sensor connected camper van. Chris, welcome to Books with Noah.
Hey Noah, thanks for having me.
Awesome, welcome. So we're here to talk about Richard Feynman's book, Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman. And it is a comedic work of autobiographical nature. It's about 12 hours on Audible. And I would say that it's just hilarious and enjoyable the whole way through. But what say you, Chris? How did you find out about Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman, and what did you think?
Yeah. So I think it was something like 8 years ago, my freshman college roommate gifts me this book for Christmas. And at the time, I embarrassingly I might have heard of Richard Feynman, but didn't know much about him. And certainly didn't know, the kind of like stories and life he lived. So I got this book for Christmas and also just sat on my bookshelf for a few months before I read it. And I remember reading it and, finding out about this guy, just the crazy amount of stuff that he's done in his life, right? Like not just his scientific contributions, but also like just his character and personality really come out in this book.
Yeah.
And like you said, I agree. It's like extremely, it's very funny, right?
Yeah.
It's very, engaging and just all around delight to read, I'd say.
Yeah, I agree. And for listeners who maybe don't know, Richard Feynman was a theoretical physicist, and he was born in 1918, died in 1988. He's, I think, probably most famous for his lectures, which I actually have not seen, but they're kind of physics for everyone to understand. And yeah, he went to MIT and Princeton, and just being...
Nope.
No?
I was in Nobel Prize, right? Even though he didn't think it was a big deal, but that is kind of a reason he's famous.
Right.
His contributions to like quantum physics, his involvement in the Challenger, scenario where he was the guy who found the gasket, the leak gaskets. Yeah.
Yeah.
His involvement in the Manhattan projects. At the time, a more junior physicist, but still very, very cool.
Yeah, so very fancy credentials. But when you listen to his book, he's very unassuming in every single situation he walks into. He approaches it as if he knows nothing. He intentionally puts himself in situations where he doesn't know anything, and he views it as an opportunity to learn, and he describes the world as his playground for him to make mistakes, and it's just... It's fantastic in my opinion. It's that kind of Zen Buddhist beginner's mind before it was even a thing. So,
yeah.
What is your favorite? And then the other thing to mention is that this book is kind of a collection of short stories from his life that are all kind of weaved together to make a long narrative that kind of gives you an idea of his life. His wives and whatnot. So which part of the book is your favorite, if you had to pick one?
First of all, that's a good summary of it. This kind of Zen mind, you can really see that in the way he approaches the world. And I don't know if Feynman studied Buddhism. He might have. I know it was becoming popular in America at the time.
Yeah.
Certainly, I guess it's maybe hinted that he might have, right?
Yeah.
He did do a stint in Japan, I believe, and did travel a lot. As far as my favorite part, I guess one of the interesting stories I recall is he learned to play the drums and he learned to draw, right? Those are two things.
Yeah, in Brazil. He spent some time there. Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting because it was relatively later, like he was in his 40s when he learned to draw, right? And I've looked at some of his watercolors and his like sketches, and they're pretty good. And I guess it's kind of amazing that this guy who's very accomplished in his 40s decides, because it's very hard to start all over, right? Like I've tried learning to draw before, and it's very difficult. Yeah. You're definitely bad at it, right? And I guess the fact that this guy was able to go and practice at it, I thought was really cool.
Right. Yeah. He walks into every situation with this fear of not being bad at something, whereas I think most adults are afraid that they're going to start something and they're not going to be good at it, and that it's embarrassing or whatever, whether it's, speaking another language or playing a music instrument. I was just listening to this other book, and it's a piano teacher talking about a student who, tried to play something and couldn't do it, and then tried again. He's like, oh, you practiced it for 3 minutes and you can't do it. Like, surprise, right? Like that's everybody's experience, but he doesn't care, and it's beautiful. He talks about making up a fake language and talking to people in a bar like that because he doesn't have anything to lose. He views Las Vegas
such an extroverted scientist, right? Which is so bizarre. I think it kind of goes against the the stereotype of like a nerdy smart person, right?
Yeah, he's extroverted, but I think he makes it pretty clear that he grew up without a lot of social skills, that he was super into playing around with radios and fixing them, and then as he gets older, he goes to MIT, and it sounds like he doesn't really try that hard, and he's good at the academic stuff, but doesn't understand at all what's happening in terms of hazing rituals and asking girls to dances and that kind of stuff. And so he's telling his story of growing up and growing in those ways to, I guess, become this very extroverted person. And he talks about how much he loves teaching and how that's not easy to prepare a really good lecture. And so, I think you're right. I never thought of that, he probably is an extrovert if we're going to put a label on him. But it's just all...
But perhaps he developed into it to a big extent, right? Right.
And he talks about, he got married young and his wife passed away from, I believe it was tuberculosis. And then, he was single again, and he found himself without many social skills and, not able to really talk well, and he would enjoy going to Las Vegas to watch the shows and the girls and everything and deal with the high rollers and how
Feynman was kind of like he did spend a lot of time chasing women basically in this, and it definitely comes out in this book
for sure. It's just amusing, and I guess maybe as the nerdy engineer, right, it's nice to hear the story of how someone else figured it out. Maybe I'll be able to also.
That's true. Oh yeah, that's fair. He's just done so much, right? Like, I think he's one of those people who, I guess because of this ability, right, of not being afraid to fail, and not being afraid of this beginner's mind, he's achieved, definitely world-class competence at physics, right? But also like a very high level of competence in like so many other fields, and I feel like that's very respectable. It's kind of like how I think about that, and I think that's kind of like what I would want ideally, right? Is this type of like openness to trying new things, and I guess it's kind of surprising how good you can get at something, right? Just by putting the hours in. And I think that's definitely something I took away.
And I think the part that comes across most strongly is just never-ending curiosity, right? He talks about how things kind of felt stale for him for a while because he wasn't doing the kind of physics that he finds interesting. And then he starts talking about how he's more interested in these, like, why does water in this little tub go this direction and not the other one? And what happens if the spout goes the other way? And it just seemed like play was such a big part of everything he did, and with the exception of working for the army doing, gear calculations. He talks about how that was miserable.
Yeah. But even while working for kind of the military or the government, he did safe cracking
right.
at Los Alamos.
Yeah, I think that's how
in the place where they were building nuclear secrets, right? Like that kind of contrast is so funny to me.
Yeah, he's got so many good stories. Yeah. That's great. I want everyone to read this book, and I'm not supposed to say that. I'm supposed to let people decide for themselves.
I mean, look, it's a great book. I mean, I think it has a lot of good lessons. Not just for people in STEM, but maybe especially for people in STEM. And it's an easy read just because it's very amusing.
Yeah, the time passes so quickly. Fantastic. Do you have anything else to add?
I mean, I guess sure. I can soapbox and just talk about how meaningful this book has been to me. I mean, kind of. I knew that I wanted to do engineering at an early age. But in my mind, if I'm looking up to these role models or heroes, right? They're kind of all in popular conception, for better or worse, the same, right? Like they're usually male, right? To be honest. And they're these nerdy guys like Steve Wozniak and Bill Gates, right?
Yeah.
And even today, I don't know if that's changed much. It's still like Mark Zuckerberg and these other kind of programming types, right? But I think reading this book has helped challenge that, like the idea that, if you're going to excel in your highly technical subject, you have to just be an introvert who, goes deep into that subject and, for better or worse, just has no life, right?
Yeah.
I think it's very clear from reading this book that Feynman had a lot of hobbies. He cultivated a lot of these hobbies. He got good, surprisingly good at a lot of these things. And surely part of it is just that he's just clearly he's a very brilliant person, I think, just very gifted in that sense. But I think this sort of attitude is something that anyone can take away, right?
Yeah, it's great. Cool. Well, thank you, Chris, and thanks for being part of Books with Noah.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to Books with Noah. Please visit our website, bookswithnoah.com. You can also find us on YouTube by searching Books with Noah.